Hi there, we're ready for the next lesson in the skeletal system. We started with the names of the bones, remember cranium all the way through the phalanges. And now we're going to talk about some of the main features of the skeletal system as well as the functions. So this is a little bit of an introduction. So let's get to it. The parts of the skeletal system. So your skeletal system is about 20% of your body mass. Okay, so for every 100 pounds, roughly, it's 20. We have 206 bones in the adult human body, but remember in children that number is more. But the skeletal system is more than just bones. The skeletal system includes ligaments, that's the connective tissue that connects bone to bone. Cartilage, that's the connective tissue that covers the ends of the bones to reduce friction. And then it's joints, the places where the bones meet. Some of our joints are movable and some are not. But we're going to learn about that in a later lesson. There are two main divisions of the skeleton. We have the axial skeleton, so think your axis, your cranium, your vertebrae, and your ribs, including your sternum in the center. So two main divisions. The first is the axial, and the second is the appendicular. The appendicular means having to do with your appendages. So your arms, your legs, and how they attach to the axial skeleton. So it includes your clavicle and your scapula, for example, for your upper limbs, and your pelvis for your lower limbs. There are two types of marrow, red marrow and yellow marrow. Red marrow is important for hematopoiesis, and that's the formation of blood cells. And yellow marrow is important for fat storage. It's also what produces cartilage, fat, and bone. What's interesting is we start with 100% red marrow, so that hematopoiesis is very important. And as we age, it transitions to more yellow marrow. Adults will have about equal amounts, but as you age, you get more and more yellow marrow. Something that's super interesting is that if you have some severe blood loss, okay, well, that's not super good, but your yellow marrow will convert to red marrow temporarily to make more blood cells. So hematopoiesis, the making of blood cells in red marrow, since adults have less, we can transition temporarily to have more red marrow to replace that lost blood. That's super cool. There are two main types of bone, compact bone, and that's what most of us think of when we think of bone. It's dense, it's hard, it's white, it looks smooth. That's what bones look like on the outside. But inside, there is some spongy bone, and the spongy bone has lots of open space. It's a little bit soft, and it's made of these like needly-like bone pieces, and it gives some lightness to our skeleton so that we can actually move our bones around. Now, ossification, which means bone formation, begins in utero when we're just a fetus, and it continues until about age 25. The bones in your face are the last to ossify. But our bones remodel, repair, and grow in thickness throughout our whole life. In fact, when you exercise, especially weight-bearing activities, you increase bone mass, not just muscle. We get a new skeleton about every 7 to 10 years. So if you've been alive for 20 years, you've replaced your skeleton twice. Crazy. In order to allow for birth, the skull and the clavicles are not fully ossified, so they can squish the baby to allow, squish on the baby to allow the baby to be born, okay? So the sutures in our skull are not fully closed. And remember, again, the bones of our face are the last ones to ossify. And then we have sinuses. They're hollow portions in our bones, and they surround our nasal cavity. So you can see that in the image here. Why do we have them? Well, it lightens our skull. So we're not like trying so hard to lift up our head or have these massive neck muscles. But it also helps to amplify our voice and add resonance. So that's the intensity and the quality of the tone. So you notice if you're stuffy, if your sinuses are stuffy, your voice changes. And that's partially because The sinuses do play a big part in that. Now let's talk about the functions. These should be self-explanatory, I hope. Protection. Bones protect your internal organs. Your ribs protect your heart and lungs. Your sternum protects your heart. Okay, your pelvis protects reproductive organs. Your cranium protects your brain. Shape. So without the skeleton, we kind of be this flabby, shapeless, blob-like thing. Support. Many of our bones provide support. So our vertebrae support our head. The pelvis supports our upper body. Those are just a few examples. Hematopoiesis. Remember, that's blood cell production. It makes red blood cells and white blood cells, and it occurs in your red marrow. Mineral storage. Bone is the largest supply of calcium, and it also stores phosphorus. So if you don't consume enough calcium in your diet, your body takes it from your bones, which makes your bones weaker. So it's important, get enough calcium. Fat storage. Fat is stored in our yellow marrow. Bone cells use this fat for energy. That's super important. Remember, weirdly, if you think about it, but bone is living tissue. Bones grow, bones repair, and they need energy too. Movement. Our muscles attach to our bones. So the bones and joints are going to work with muscles to allow movement. And there you have it, an introduction to the skeletal system. Some super cool facts and what the functions are. So we'll be back again for another skeletal system lesson.